Hi, this is Hey Vern on the Anime Studio Forum, Vernon Zaire. Um, I'm just doing a quick demo of a bone marker script I created. Um, I'll just do a quick demo of it. Here I have a simple face that has control bones, and I'd like to have a way of moving them without having to see anything going on. So I created a script that I've been using to create markers. Uh, so basically, you just it starts off, you can create from the bone layer or from a predefined vector layer. It's oftentimes easier to just start from the bone layer because it creates the vector layer automatically that's not rendering. It's a non-rendered layer. So you select the bones you want to create a marker for, and I have this script installed as a menu script under my own custom folder in my custom Anime Studio content folder. So I select bone markers. There's instructions on the download page for the script. It shows you how it works. Basically, I'll just run through the options. Because I'm on the bone layer to start with, create markers in new layer is grayed out because it's not needed. It'll automatically create the marker layer within the bone layer. The next checkbox is no markers. Checking that box will deactivate all the marker options, and it will only create bone names for the markers. And then as you can see here, the add bone name is checked, and you can orient the bone name to the marker, or you can orient the marker to the bone itself. You can change the size and the offset of the text. What I'm going to do is, for this demonstration, I'll run through the two different options. A regular standard default marker with nothing checked creates round circle markers that are based on the length of the bone. By checking fixed size markers, it will create bones that are all a fixed size. Both with this checked and unchecked, it's still going to use the marker size variable here. This is just a relative sort of made up number. Um, you can play around with it. Uh, but this, if you have fixed size markers unchecked, this number is multiplied against the bone length itself. So it'll be slightly larger or smaller depending on the bone length. So before I run the script, let's take one of these bones and make it really long so you can see how that works. You can see the difference. So I'll make that bone really big, and that way we'll get a sample of what that will look like. So what I'll do is I'll leave all the settings at their default. I'll turn on add bone name, and I'll add orient to bone and turn that on. And as you can see, it creates these nice markers. If you turn off the display, it's easier to see them. Now, as you can see, the markers are pretty big, and the bone name offset wasn't quite right, so it's sort of overlapping. So that might be an issue for readability. So you just undo that. Let's try that again and change some of the settings. That way you can see some of the settings in action. Um, what I'll do is I'll increase the offset. I'll make it 1.5 and see what that does. And there we have a little bit of a better offset on the bone name. Still on these really large um, markers, if you do have them assigned to the markers to the bone length, you can get really gigantic markers, and that's not always good. So what I like to do is just use for something like that where I just need a little circle to define the size of the mark, to define the location of the bone. I'll just use fixed size markers, um, and we'll see how that works. And then you can see that's really tiny. Those are tiny markers. Let's try that with something a little larger. So we have the marker sizes set to 1. Let's try 4, see what that does. And so you can see how this is helpful. You can play around with these settings. Obviously 4 was a little bit big, and you can use decimal points too, so 2.5. And you can get your settings. There we go. So that's a good setup right there. So Basically, what it does is it adds in a circular marker that points in the direction of the bone. So as you can see here, there's a little triangle, and it's always going to point in the direction of the bone. Um, and it adds the actual name of the bone underneath the marker. So we have all our little control bone markers listed. Um, some of the other options, if we go up and run the script again, we can say create bone shape. Now, if you create a bone shape, you might want to turn this fixed size marker off. Bone shape will ignore the marker size. It's based entirely on the shape and size of the bone, the length of the bone. Um, and I'll just turn off the name here. And there you can see that what it's done is it's created little markers in the exact shape of the bone. So now you can actually see where the bones are that you've created markers for without interfering with the rest of the document. Um, Another option is, of course, you can set the color. So we can go in here and use a different fill color for the bone markers. You can use transparency or alpha values. You can set the color and alpha of the stroke. The marker stroke color also applies to the bone name. So if I were to change the stroke color to say a red and run this, my text now is also red. Now this text is a custom font that I created. This is not a standard font from your font library. These fonts are strictly very simple, and they're just single strokes. As you can see, the shapes it's just a stroke with a width that you can set. Also, too, the points in this font are very small. There's a very small number of points, so it's a very lightweight font. This font generation is also available with more features in another script on the site. It's called Simple Text, Simple Stroke Text. It's also a menu script, and you can import large quantities of text into a vector layer by loading an external text file. I've incorporated the same font into this bone marker script. Um, let's run this again, and I'll show you what it looks like with oriented to the bone. Now it's hard to see that because these bones aren't rotated, so let's just I'll turn these off for now. Let's just rotate some of these bones so we can see what that would look like. I'll twist some of these around. Also, too, the script takes into account nested and parented bones. So if you have long chains of bones um, like this, it will automatically compensate for the chain of parenting and orient the text properly. So you don't have to worry about any of that. So we've got some bones now with odd rotations, and we're going to run the script. Um, and I'm going to say orient the name to the bone. I'm going to drop the offset down to 1, and I'm going to bump up the size of the text. You can change the the size of the text relative to the bone, and then we'll see. Okay, so now what's happened here is we have our bone markers, and the names of the bone, as you can see, are centered on the base or the origin of the bone. If you want to offset or if you want to move the text to align it with the bone, that's a fairly simple procedure. You can, because the points are automatically assigned to the bone, you can just select the bone and it highlights the points, and then you can just simply deselect the marker if you don't want to move it as well, and then you can just slide the text anywhere you want. Um, just make sure nothing else is selected, and then you can move the text around. So selecting text that might be overlapping. Sometimes text will overlap other bone text, and you may want to adjust the positioning. Or sometimes you may want to, move the text around completely and have it stacked or whatever. There's not enough features yet in the script to do that automatically. But it's fairly straightforward to move this stuff, and it does save a lot of time. And now, as you can see, um, it's rotated the text with the bone. Now, in some cases, what will happen is a bone will be rotated way over on one side, and if I just used standard rotation, the text would be upside down. What the script automatically does is any bone that is rotated beyond a certain point, it will flop it around so it's easier to read. It won't be completely upside down. For example, this bone here, the text, if the text were generated in the same spot that this bone text is created, this text here would be upside down, and it'd be hard to read. So the script automatically orients the text so that it's readable in its initial position. Of course, once you go to an animated layer, animated frame. Oops, I got the wrong layer. There we go. So let's rotate this bone. You can see it automatically. Um, I'm not displaying any bones, so there's no construction curves displayed, and yet I can still see where the bones are. And this is very handy for um, just highlighting only the bones you want to see. Um, of course, with the interface of Anime Studio, if bones are on top of each other, you're still going to have issues selecting the bone. This won't override that functionality, but it does help if you have limited control bones that you want to highlight clearly so that you can see them. Um, so this is a really, really fast way. It's a lot faster than the way I used to have to do it, drawing by hand. If I wanted bone markers that were in the shape of the bone, I had to copy and paste a pre-done shape and scale it up and match it to the bone. And, it was a tedious, time-consuming process. And now it's all automated. Plus, adding in the names of the bones as part of the marker is really helpful as well, um, and saves a lot of time. Anyway, let's get to real quickly. I just want to jump to the installation of the script, just to show you real quickly how to install it. This is the HubuMedia website. Um, uh, this is where you would this is where you go to download the script, and we have the bone marker script here. I have instructions set up, and eventually the video I'm creating right now will be on this page. All the explanation for usage is here. And so you would download the file. So I'm downloading this file to my script download folder, and I'm going to go and show you. So here we are. I've just downloaded this script, and I'm decompressing it. And here are the files. There's a README text that has more explanation and instructions that's also on the website. And there's 3 files. There's a ping file for the icon. There's also a large ping file which would be used in Anime Studio Debut if you're using this as a button tool rather than just a menu script. The button or menu application of the script works both in Anime Studio Debut and Pro. You may want to install it as a tool button um, instead of a menu script. That's entirely up to you. Both of those options are feasible. And they both follow the same steps, basic steps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swipe over those 3. I've selected those 3 tools, or those 3 items, the large icon and the small icon, and the script, which is the .lua. And I'm going to copy that. And this is here I'll demonstrate this. This is my Anime Studio custom content folder. So here's my under the help. Now I'm on the Mac, obviously it's different on the PC, but it says open custom content folder, and that's what this is. I created the custom content folder ahead of time when I'm installing Anime Studio, and this is where I keep all my custom files. Most of these are empty, and that's fine. I only really use this for scripting predominantly. So here in my menu script, you can see I have my HubuMedia folder with my custom scripts here, and under Bones, I have my the scripts that I use for the Bones, and let's see here. and then here's my bone marker script. It is not in the bone folder. It should be in there, but anyway, that's where I put it. Now, what I'm going to do is, just for now, I'm going to delete that from Anime Studio, from my custom folder, because I'm going to demonstrate how to install it um, as a tool. So to install it as a tool, you would come down to your tool folder, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paste those 3 files that I copied. That's the bone markers, large icon, text script, and the small icon. And now, in order to use this as a button, we have to edit the tool list file. So I'm going to open that in my favorite text editor. You want to use a standard plain vanilla text editor. Something that isn't going to have, word processing. It's just straight text, like simple text, notepad, anything that just does plain ASCII text. Now I'm going to add this under, I want to put this under bones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy one that I already have in here as a button. Remember, this has to be a button. So I already have my load and save bone buttons loaded. So I'm just going to copy and paste, and then I'm going to change this. And it's best to copy and paste, but you can type it in if you know the name. Basically, you're typing in the exact name of the script that you're loading, that you're adding. So I know that this is called bone markers, so I'm going to type in bone markers. You don't want the .lua after it, and these 3 dots, it would be a keyboard shortcut. However, I've probably run out of keyboard shortcuts at this point, so I'm not going to bother adding one for that. So now we have bone markers in there. I'm going to save this tool list file, and that's in your tools folder. It's underscore tool underscore list.txt, and that's how you add tools to your tool palette in Anime Studio. So now I go back to Anime Studio Pro, and I'm going to quit. I don't want to save the changes. And now I'll relaunch Anime Studio Pro. And we now have a new bone tool here. It's bone markers, and if you roll over it, you'll see bone markers comes up. And I'll open up my test file again, which already has some predefined markers in it. I'll just delete that layer and show you that the bone marker button now is activated and works. It pops up and everything is just as it was before. So you can use it as a menu script. Now you can see here I deleted it out of my menus, so it's no longer there, no problem. Um, it works as a menu script and as a button script or a button tool for Anime Studio debut users. Anyway, that's, oh, let me just real quick, I'll review the process for installing in the menu items. So it's the same process, you're just putting it in a different location. And with this process, you don't actually have to edit your tool list file. If you're doing this with Anime Studio Pro, you do not need to edit this file to add the button in. The only time you need to do that is when you're adding it as a tool button. If you're just adding it as a menu item, you can put it in a custom folder within the menu folder. So you're in scripts, menu, and then you can create subfolders for your own custom scripting that you've downloaded, where you can just put it straight into the menu folder. It doesn't matter. But you just want to place, you only need the one script, just the Lua script. So what I'll do is I'll bring this back up here. I'm going to add it to bones. I'm going to delete the 2 ping files. I don't want them in there because there's no script for them anymore. So now in my bones folder of my custom menu item folder, script folder, I now have bone markers.lua. I'm going to go back to Anime Studio and quit. You have to quit in order to refresh this. It's best to do it that way. I'm also going to go back here and remove the bone markers entry that I added to my tool list file, because that could cause an error when I launch Anime Studio. And now I'll just reload Anime Studio Pro. And you can see now the tool palette icon is gone. I've removed it from my tool palette, and now under HubuMedia, my custom folder here, scripts, HubuMedia, bones, I now have bone markers again as a menu item. Now, obviously it's easier to have it as a tool palette item, but uh, some people with a lot of custom tools, they just run out of space here. And it is, it can save some space and you can still have access to it without wasting all the real estate on the tool palette. Um, so anyway, that's it. And thanks for watching. I hope you use the script and it saves you some time. Thank you very much.